Okay, welcome to a brand new podcast from the real world. Enter therealworld.com. My name is Matt Waters. I'm joined at this time by the guy that will be quarterbacking this in a weird way, even though I'll host. Ben Phillips, how are you on this very warm evening when this is recorded?
God, it's so warm.
Yeah.
I'm good. I have spent my day dipping in and out of trivia on this show. I'm so excited for this.
I don't miss not having to do that. So to preface this, this is called Countdown to Destruction. This will be covering The Leftovers. Every single episode of this podcast will cover 2 episodes of The Leftovers, culminating on a very special date that, I mean, it's clear to me now from having seen the first episode what that date will be. But to give even more background, Ben is a massive fan of The Leftovers. I have never ever seen it. You have been on at me for a very long time to just watch it. And I was like, I feel at this point it's a thing, and it would just annoy him more if I didn't watch it. But then you talked me into it based on the date being special. So
it was the date, and then I also said there's only 28 episodes, so it's not like the biggest time suck in the world.
That's true. Nothing will turn me off more than
60 episodes of The Wire.
There you go. There are 5 seasons. There are 7 seasons. These words are not going to make me watch your show. So yeah, The Leftovers. I will, as it sounds, be watching these for the very first time. I have only seen these 2 episodes at the time of this recording. I haven't watched the first 10, and we're going to talk about the first 2 or anything like that. So I am going into each of these completely, not blind, but, I have no idea where it's going, whereas when we did our MCU podcast, we had both seen everything a million times, and we assume our audience had. So we're in a position here where you know where it all goes. You have this show has lived in you, to a lesser extent than Lost did, but, it's a big thing for you, and I've never seen any of it, so you will be bringing the trivia, the research, maybe this is going to be important later, but not spoiling it. And I will just be the dumb idiot who goes, that scene was pretty.
That brings up an important thing. So what is your experience? Because obviously this show was co-created by Damon Lindelof.
Yeah.
What is your experience with him?
Lost.
I feel like that's important. Is it just Lost? I mean, have you seen Star Trek 2? Have you seen World War Z?
I've seen Star Trek 2. I didn't know he did it until I made the most minor of notes for this intro. You can count me in the crowd that thought that J.J. Abrams was way more involved with Lost than he was, and then finding out later, he showed up, pitched it, and then Lindelof and Cruise basically ran the ship. I know him to be a very talented writer, and I know him to be somewhat of a hero to you, but
I can't overstate. I watch a lot of television.
Do you?
But yeah, Lost is the reason that I do that. I remember 2005, so 13-year-old me.
That's disgusting.
Sitting down because my sitting down because my dad was just like, "Hey, Channel 4," because it aired on Channel 4 in the UK, not ABC. "Hey, this show's had some good write-ups. Do you want to watch it?" Missed the first scene, so for a solid year I didn't know the iconic shot of Jack waking up in the jungle and stumbling out. I opened up straight on him running out into the beach and the wreckage and stuff like that. And the show hooked me in such a way that I don't think anything before or after had hooked me in such a way as that episode.
Well, I think I missed the entire first episode, and I was hooked for the entire first 2 seasons. And then it moved from free TV to paid
Sky.
TV over here, and then I was like, okay, done. I think they made the first episode available for free on MySpace or some shit. That's how long ago this was. And I watched that. I was like, okay, but I don't have Sky. I'm a small child. No, older than you tiny. But yeah, and then I marathoned it all just before it ended because I was on a mission to catch up before the final episode. But this isn't Lost. This isn't Star Trek Into Darkness. It isn't even World War Z, which I'm surprised Damon Lindelof was part of. Is that movie secretly good?
I've heard good things. I've not actually seen it. I've read the book. Yeah. It's probably better than Prometheus.
Oh yeah, and Prometheus, of course.
I mean, this is just Damon Lindelof, kind of a controversial figure. I love him to pieces. I don't think he's written a wholly successful movie in his career.
Well, his strength is TV. That's not always a bad thing. At the time of this recording, he has annoyed a subset of Watchmen fans. He has yet to make that show. But
they are filming the pilot as we record. And
interesting. Okay. Well, as quickly as possible, I suppose, Do you want to just kind of give, as your understanding, how this show came together from a behind-the-scenes perspective? I hadn't heard of this book. I don't know how many people had heard of it before it got turned into a show. That seems to be the way things go these days, where some obscure comic book or book you've never heard of is coming to, a movie theatre or a screen near you. So yeah, anything you got on the how the stars aligned for Damon Lindelof to create The Leftovers?
Obviously, after Lost finished, Damon Lindelof he took a break from TV. He did a few movie scripts. He basically, HBO got the rights to Tom Perotta's novel The Leftovers in 2012, I believe. No, 2011, actually, shortly before the book came out. Damon Lindelof had read Perotta's early novels, most famously Election and Little Children, both of which were made into movies. Election probably more famous because Alexander Payne. And so Damon Lindelof didn't hear of this book until Stephen King reviewed it in the New York Times. Okay. And signed on after that because Damon Lindelof is a massive Stephen King fan.
That makes sense based on Lost.
Yeah, yes. I mean, if you've read The Stand, you know a lot of where Lost's ideas have come from. And basically they started production on it in 2012. And then they kind of shot it all in 2013. And it came together in kind of that way. Like, it's a fairly boring story. It's just the standard.
I just think you need to pay some lip service to these kind of things when it's the first. I do.
Thing. There is one thing I do want to say, which is obviously the show was filming in 2013. A little tiny show. I don't think many people heard of it, called Breaking Bad. Ended late that year, and that finale caused Damon Lindelof a lot of pain because he basically got hounded off Twitter by people saying this is how you make a good finale, and people basically I think he made a comment that said the Breaking Bad finale is fantastic, and then everyone was just kind of going better than that shitty Lost finale.
Wow.
And so basically he left Twitter. Conveniently, he left Twitter on October the 14th, 2013.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the basic backstory of this show. Okay. I basically saw Damon Lindelof was doing this and was like, well, I'm going to go read that book. I read the book in the summer of 2013. Didn't think too much of it. Basically, my overriding thought of it saying if this was a TV show and they got to go explore some things, it could be successful. The book, just kind of interesting concept, not 100% fulfilled upon. And I read it long enough before I watched the first episode of the show that I kind of was forgetting things. I knew
that's the best way.
Yeah, I knew the broad strokes of where the story was going to go, but when it got to little details, I was like, was that in the book? And I over time, I've kind of calcified on what's in the book, what's not in the book. But at the time I was watching it, it was kind of surprising and not surprising at the same time, which was a nice feeling.
And then, the TV show happened. I think I became aware of it through working in a place that sells DVDs. So I was like, oh, yeah, I guess I saw some promotional material. I don't think I really spoke to many people that had seen it until I met you, to be honest. And I just remember all those angsty posters of Justin Theroux, and
I mean, it's interesting because it's it feels like it premiered at the heyday of HBO.
You mean this is when Sex and the City, or
well, no, I mean obviously there's that heyday of Sopranos, Sex and the City, Deadwood, all those kind of shows. But this is a few years after Game of Thrones. True Detective has just been on TV over the previous winter. Girls is on, Silicon Valley starting up, Veep starting up. There's a lot of really good HBO stuff. And then this kind of premieres to not very much fanfare, considering the fact that Lost is one of the biggest shows of the last 15 years.
I mean, HBO going, hey, we've got one of the guys that made Lost is doing this show that's, dark and moody, and certainly from the branding appears to be going for that same kind of audience as True Detective. I would think people would jump on it, but I feel over time I saw more people talking about it, and the people that do talk about it incredibly positively. But it didn't have that big, oh my god, you need to see this, that True Detective, Breaking Bad, those kinds of shows had from almost the off.
I think we'll get to it when we actually start discussing the first episode, but I think there's a core difference between this show and what True Detective did, what Game of Thrones does, what Lost did. It's not really a big theory, but we will discuss that when we get to episode 1.
Okay. Eventually. And before we go any further, we've mentioned Lost a lot, we've mentioned Damon Lindelof a lot. Big shout out to our good friends Kevin Ford and Ben Lundy. They do a podcast recapping every episode of Lost, which is, it's nice to have these two Lindelof podcast projects going in tandem from Broadcast Depth every Monday at entertherealworld.com. So, I guess...
Secretly hoping if I speak well enough on this, I get a guest on some kind of episode. I want to do The Constant. The Constant is the episode I want to do.
I think you have to listen to it a bit more before you...
I do. Okay. I will catch up. But right. The Constant, please.
Okay. I know Lost is very precious to you and you couldn't stand to hear other people talk about it. But yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I can get on an episode of Lost. From Broadcast Depth. So.
Lost, that show's been over.
I can get on an episode of Lost. We'll get the gang back together. What the fuck is Jack doing?
Don't look up what Matthew Fox has been doing recently. It's not good.
Oh. Well, on that note, let's do it. Episode 1. Called Pilot. Controversial title for the first episode of a show. If I have any facts wrong at any point in this, because, as I've said, I know nothing that happens beyond these 2 episodes, and I've seen them each once, so I'm going to present to you the plot as I understand it, and we'll talk about it as we go, but if there's anything I've just flat out got wrong, do jump in. So I believe this aired on the 29th of June 2014, directed by Peter Berg, Friday Night Lights, yo. Written by Damon Lindelof and Tom Perrotta, who, as we've said, is the author of the book. So, we open with... This is what I heard, that the show's kind of about the end of the world, or a bunch of people just go missing. And I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. And what happens then? And I guess we'll find out. So, we open on October 14th, 2011. The event, the departure, the big hook of the whole show. Roughly 2% of the world's population just suddenly vanish. And we're shown this in as harrowing a manner as possible, as this mum is, she's got a baby, she's trying to do laundry, she's trying to, put him in a seat in a car, he's screaming, he goes quiet, and I was like, oh, he'll be gone then. And then he's back, he's still there, you're like, okay, no, the baby's still there, cries again, looks back. Baby is gone. Distraught mother, screaming for him in the parking lot. Like, this baby is clearly not old enough to answer to its name, but I guess it's just desperation. And, you see other people screaming out. I think there's a kid who's lost his mum, so like an inverse situation. His dad, sorry. Okay, I'm sure that will be important. So it's just this shocking... People just vanished. And then we move forward. Is it 3 years later? We're coming up on the 3-year anniversary?
So I do want to point out one thing that happens in this scene.
Absolutely.
Which is that there is a car crash that goes on in the background.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm not...
She's worried about that as well. I assume someone was driving and just vanished from their car and the car crashed was what happened there.
Maybe the show will return to this.
I am sure there will be many, and here's some people that vanished type moments. So yeah, we move forward and we kind of get this... easy to digest, people are talking about it on the news, like radio shows and all this stuff with statistics about how many people have been lost from what countries. We see a little sizzle reel of people that vanished. Depressingly, Anthony Bourdain among the people that vanished. That's very sad now. And Shaq. Shaq is gone in this world. So, bad times.
It's just, that seems like the kind of thing that'd be really fun to do. As like a writer's room, to sit there and just spitball, saying like, well, who would be fun to go? Who do we want to
Bonnie Raitt
have disappear from this world?
So this is your central hook, that just a whole bunch of people just vanished. It's not the world has ended; it's that people vanished, and we're now dealing with what happens after that. I genuinely don't know why they vanished, or if it's even ever explained. I don't want you to confirm now if it is or not. I feel I've heard that they just never really tell you, but maybe that's not true. But it's ostensibly presented as kind of a rapture situation where some people vanished and went up to heaven, and these are the people that are left before the world ends, which is why I speculated that this should be called Countdown to Destruction, because I don't know.
I will say, this is, as you can tell from watching the first 2 episodes, none of the characters are especially interested in figuring out the why. No.
We're not in the few months after it happened, we're 3 years after it happened, and it will, I assume each season will be a year or something like that, but it's just, this is what life is, and this is what happens to the world. In a world where this has happened, what is the world like?
And you get the scene with the kind of the Senate hearing with the scientist, and they kind of summarize it later on the episode, and they go, your summary is, and I'm paraphrasing here, you don't know, and I feel like that is very emblematic of the kind of tone that the show is going for, which is that it's more about the how you deal rather than the why.
Yeah, it's like David Lynch fucked up with Twin Peaks, where they're like, well, it was never about what happened to Laura Palmer. It was just meant to be about the town. I was like, yeah, but fuck you. You made the whole show about what happened to Laura Palmer. So I get the sense that the show is in no way about finding out what happened, and instead just dealing, that is your setup for these characters to play around in the sandbox you've created. Speaking of characters, Police Chief and General Hunk, Kevin Garvey, played by Justin Theroux, jogging around.
That bulge.
You made sure to bring attention to his impressive penis. I didn't notice. I was looking at his abs, obviously. But I gather this is a recurring thing. We see him out jogging, and he comes across a stray dog, which is promptly shot dead by a stranger who drives off. Later that day, he also has a dream of hitting a deer with his car, and when he wakes up, his kitchen is all fucked up, and I've got to say, the rampant violence towards animals, pretty big turnoff for a first episode. It's intriguing, because clearly something is going on with dogs and deers as they recur here, but it was quite rough stuff to watch, and I'm sure people were up in arms about, this kind of thing being on television, as they always are when there's like animal violence. But
you can tell this is Damon Lindelof with no network cuffs, because Lost is there's some stuff, but there's no swearing, there's no nudity. It's got those kind of standard rules. Whereas in these two episodes, we get male nudity. One of the female characters says cunt repeatedly.
She does. She asphyxiates the boy.
Yeah. This is basically saying, we're on HBO, deal with it.
Yeah.
I think this is the only season that's an 18 at the end of it. I might be wrong.
Yeah, or whatever that equates to in America, an R, I guess. My read on this situation is that, a lot of people vanished and their dogs then had no owners, so they just went feral, and I guess the dogs are attacking people, is what I'm reading from how this all plays out.
So the idea is basically the dogs witnessed the event.
Okay.
Dogs that saw people vanish, something just kind of breaks in their brain and they can't deal with humanity anymore, and just kind of run away and go. Which is, in the book, it's a paragraph is devoted to this story, but Tom Perrotta was telling Damon Lindelof this, and Damon Lindelof was like, this is now the crux of our pilot episode, is the man walking around shooting dogs because they've gone insane.
This will go more places at the end of this episode, and then sort of get grounded a bit more in the second episode. But as just a thing to see, it's okay, everyone vanishes, man is jogging, a dog, a man shot that dog, what the fuck.
Yeah.
And he takes this dog over, he uses the collar to find the owner. She doesn't give a shit because it was her husband's dog, who vanished, so she's like, yeah, fuck you. And then there's a stuffed deer or something, and is this show, does it play with mythology or make references to mythology at all? Because there are little bits I've noticed in the first two that, while they're not overt, they do seem like maybe some subtle nods. And I know stags and deer are a big thing for certain sort of religions and mythologies.
There are things in this show that can be interpreted as being supernatural. The show kind of plays with the idea of every single thing that happens that could be something supernatural also probably has a real world explanation for it.
Because as I mentioned, he had this dream. In the first two episodes, he has two dreams that are somewhat prophetic, and it's is he calling them before they happen, or summoning them into being, or getting a warning, or is the things actually happening just seeping through his subconscious? He's hearing something fucking up his kitchen, a deer, and then he dreams about hitting a deer. It could go either way. So, he is a police chief. When he makes it to work, he has a big argument with the mayor about, it's the third anniversary of the big disappearance.
Yes, it is. It's the third anniversary.
Heroes Day or something, maybe?
Yeah, basically the government have declared it a national holiday.
Obviously, that's what America be doing. And he is worried that this group called the GR will turn up and cause trouble. And then, I'm kind of going out of order a bit here because it's hard to just cut back and forth. But we see some members of the GR, the Guilty Remnant. They are a cult that wear all white. They have a vow of silence. They chain smoke inexplicably. They live in their own little community. It's all very creepy. They communicate by, writing on notepads, and they're clearly organising some kind of trip, which you can put two and two together. They are planning on protesting or turning up to this parade for Heroes Day. The most prominently featured actress is Amy Brenneman, who wants to go to whatever this is. I don't like the GR, Ben. Immediately, I just don't.
As in, you don't like them as a concept, or you don't like them because you're having a visceral reaction to what they stand for?
That one. I see them and I'm like, oh, you're bad. We'll get into that when we get to the parade. But yeah, we get that camera link. It's very obvious when someone is important on television. But meanwhile, Buddy from Friday Night Lights pays Kevin's son Tom, aka Flash Thompson from Amazing Spider-Man. He pays him to drive him to meet someone called Wayne, who, if you're British and you see this man, you're like, and if you're not, you're like, oh, it's just some wacky British dude. Patterson Joseph from Peep Show and other amazing projects. He's, as I've read it, the leader of another cult. He lives on his own little ranch. He's surrounded by many underage women.
Many underage Asian women.
Yes, he is explicitly called out as having an Asian fetish after this. But
inexplicably.
Yeah, well, Tom seems to, have a crush on one of these girls, Christine. And Wayne comes to him in his room later on with a knife, I think. And he just is very threatening. But in the midst of his ramblings, he mentions I don't know if he phrases it as a dream or a vision, or he's talking about his departed family, I believe, or his departed kids, and how they said something to him. And I don't have the quote written down. I'm hoping you know it, but it's pertaining to essentially... I don't. Okay, well, it's kind of hinting at something's going to happen in 3 years' time or something, which would be roughly now, because
yes. So the idea is that the bad things are bad things that are coming for them kind of 3 years later. I can't remember what the exact quote is, but it is like there's a lot of bandying around these dates.
Yes, because the reason you talked me into this in the first place because you want to culminate the podcast with the final episode on October 14th, 2018, correct?
Yes.
So that will be another anniversary of this event, so whatever is coming or isn't coming, I'm guessing it happens in that final episode, and that's why you wanted to start on July 15th so we could end on the date that the final episode is set for realsies, and that is fun, and that's the reason I agreed to do this. You could have just kept telling me The Leftovers is good for the rest of our lives and I wouldn't have watched it.
So Patterson Joseph is so magnetic in this scene. I remember, my strongest memory of Patterson Joseph is he was in Jekyll, the Stephen Moffat version of Jekyll they did.
The one with
10 years ago at this point.
One with James Nesbitt.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that. That was alright.
Yeah, he's just got this just weird otherworldly presence.
Yeah, he's giggling to himself.
But he's also so much more magnetic than both Chris Zilka and Annie Q, who are ostensibly actual characters who we are going to be following.
And Peter Berg, who meets them at the gate, director of the episode. That was fun. Yeah, this man is a senator or something, or a congressman, I don't know, and he is paid to come and meet this Wayne person who does something that we don't yet know. And it's all a bit weird. Tom is here. I think we only learned that he is Kevin's son because we see his phone ringing and it's a picture of Kevin and it says Dad on the screen. And clearly this is it's far away. I think we later learn he's out west, and there are no ranches in upstate New York where I believe the show takes place primarily. And he seems happy at first, but his final thing he does in this episode is scream while underwater, while showing this male nudity. So he's clearly not entirely happy to be here. I guess he just got in over his head, or maybe there's more to it, and we'll find out. I don't know. Yeah, so we got two different cults in play here, which I guess makes sense if there's a potential end of world scenario happening, and they'd all be coming out of the woodwork and saying, "Ha, we told you."
The show is playing on the idea that in the wake of these catastrophic events, there are people who are going to have certain ways of thinking and certain ways of coping. So there are hints in some way that Holy Wayne does something to unburden people.
Yeah, I want to get into that in the next one, because I picked up on something that I could be completely off on, but
that is his deal. The Guilty Remnant are kind of more of a, as the mirror says when Laurie, Amy Renham's character, wakes up, it's just that we are living reminders, and it's basically like they are there to exist to make sure that people don't forget that the departure happened.
We'll get into this very shortly, but we move from one of Kevin's children to another. Jill, she's in trouble for fighting at school. She says cunt repeatedly. It's very edgy. She goes to a party where all these sexy teens are just having the last days of Rome and having like a big apathetic orgy, I guess, where they play spin the bottle, and instead of like kiss, it's burn or fuck or choke. And we see her go into a room with this like reject from some stoner movie, and they both get undressed, and she chokes him while he jerks off. And he even goes, "Do you mind if I jerk off?" So I guess just the dare was just go and choke him. Why does she get undressed? Like, what's happening here?
I'm very happy that he does ask for consent before he starts.
Good consensual boy.
He doesn't just openly start masturbating in front of her.
Just because it's the end of the world doesn't give you license to go all Louis C.K. on people, you know? Like, there are manners at all times.
So I'm not going to do this often, but the book does kind of elucidate some of this, which is that these have been going on for a while, and they're kind of like, everyone's kind of done stuff with everyone.
Yeah.
So it kind of gets to a point where
bored.
like
she doesn't look like freaked out or into it. She's just like, yeah, okay, whatever, and she's just choking him.
Yeah. The idea is that like they have done this before, or like she's seen many guys jerk off, or like, and so it's basically like this idea of, well, what happens if the parents don't really care anymore?
Well, yeah, we get that vibe. Like when we see them together in their family dynamic, it's like there's not a whole lot of tenderness here. And like you would think in an event where people have just vanished, and they say you're statistically unlikely to have lost anyone close to you, you would think you would cling to your loved ones more, and it seems they're actually way more fractured than anything.
Yeah, so ostensibly the show, this first season is set based around the Garvey family. Like we've met the main characters so far, but because we've met them all, we kind of know that they didn't lose anyone.
Yeah, and I guess that's what it is that they're just dysfunctional in spite of not losing each other. Like they, I want to know more. I want to know what split this family up if it wasn't this event. And I guess we'll get there. I did catch just before the orgies happen, when they're just at school, the Pledge of Allegiance is called for over the speakers, and no one joins in. I didn't catch it immediately because I'm not American and I don't worship the false idol of my own country. But yeah, none of the teens do the pledge because they're NFL players. And then some of them do pray, though, but not all of them.
Quite a lot of them pray.
Yeah. So yeah, it just seems like that's meant to be like an immediate warning sign of all is not well.
Yeah, I think special mention though to Margaret Qualley Jill, where the guy kind of like mimes shooting the gun, and then she goes way overboard and does like a really realistic hanging scene.
Yeah, and he's just like, too far, Jill. Too far. Yeah, and more hints at all this debauchery, because her friend, I mean, we've all teased our friends with like, oh yeah, you want to fuck him, but like, I feel that it's a little bit further than it would be, and I guess that just sort of plays into how they've all become so sort of desensitized to all this stuff. I guess they just want to feel, Ben. It is what all this stuff with the spin the phone is.
You're getting the very obvious metaphor at the core of all of this.
Yeah, good. Great, yeah. It's all just so... oh, God, imagine Tumblr in a world where people vanished. Anyway, so on the day of this parade, Kevin is proven right as the GR arrive and silently protest, which causes mass violence. So there's a lot going on in this scene, and I feel a lot of it will be important, and I'm not supposed to get it all, because I know that Christopher Eccleston and Carrie Coon are meant to be two of the bigger stars, or bigger characters in this whole show, and they do nothing.
So we meet
really.
Yeah, we meet Christopher Eccleston's Matt, who is handing out flyers for someone who he says is a bad person. We don't really know why he's handing out these flyers saying that people are bad people.
Yeah.
But
is it him, or does someone else say this, where it's basically like, oh, these people weren't raptured. Like, I can prove that some of these people that have disappeared were bad people, so they're definitely not in heaven. Right, that is him. Okay.
Yeah, that's
a fair thing to do.
It's his idea is basically saying, like, this is not a religious thing. Look, this person beat their children. This person did this. Like, decent people, like, they weren't decent people, and he's kind of become a religious zealot. But we'll get to that. And then Carrie Coon.
So, like, they say how unlikely it would be that even one person close to you would vanish, and we learn in this she gives a little speech, or starts to, she lost her husband and both children, or several people, which is mathematically a very long shot. So she is a very tragic person, is Gloria Burgle.
Yeah. And, like, God, Carrie Coon completely nails that speech where she's talking about how the one more day she wants, she doesn't need the, like, nice day at the beach. Yeah. She could do with the day where they're all sat at home with the flu and are, like, vomiting and shitting everywhere.
Yeah, that's what you miss. You miss the bickering, the everyday stuff. There are people here who have weird markings on their foreheads. I assume that will be explained down the line.
They are the barefoot people.
Is this like like the people in Futurama who wear the number 9 or something, and it was just an abandoned plot line?
So I will, in the episode where they would become important, I will mention what they would have done.
Okay.
But that is for future times. The barefoot people are just another example of kind of the cults that kind of grow up in this circumstance. They paint targets on their heads and don't wear shoes because they want to be... Yes, that is what they are. They want to be picked up in the next Rapture event if another one happens.
And you got to take your shoes off because that makes you easier to pick up.
Obviously. Yes, because they're kind of like hippies. So like Kevin tells them stop smoking weed.
Right.
At this,
I thought that was a cigarette, and he just didn't want to be reminded of the GR, but it was the ganja. So none of that. This whole scene, Retrograde by James Blake, is playing, and it's an awesome piece of music. I gather the musical choices go many places. Most of this first episode is nice little piano pieces, though, and I'm not a huge classical music fan, but I appreciate it when it's set to good imagery.
So, I mean, this is Max Richter is the composer of the show, who does the kind of like cool piano piece. A couple of his actual like classical pieces kind of like sprinkled throughout as well. And then special shout out to Lisa Richardson, who is the music supervisor for The Leftovers. I don't think the show has got its kind of tone as well together as well as is in later episodes. But in this first episode, we jump from like Patsy Cline to Flux Pavilion to James Blake to Fuck Buttons to Otis Redding. Like it's a mishmash, and some of them work really well, others work slightly less well. But it is
just anything like, cool and hip, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I think the show does tone it down eventually, but right now everything feels so maximal. At points where like it's like there's the scene earlier on the episode with the Guilty Remnant where Laurie like they mention something and then they just cut to her like beating someone's face in on like a schoolyard, and like some of the cuts are like really jarring and really like violent, and the show mellows a little bit.
Well, speaking of violence, I glossed over it, but so the GR show up, they stand silently as they do at a distance, and they hold up a sign that says it's like you're wasting your breath, I think. Yep. Yeah. And the townspeople just violently assault them and they don't fight back. Now, I think this says that I'm a bad person, but I wanted them to hurt them. And I don't know why. I think I'm just a bad human being, but the sight of them makes me angry, and I'm skipping over something that there's no point because it'll only really be important at the end, but they do more things to antagonize people silently, and it's just like, I just want someone to punch them, and then that's what everyone does. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I hope we'll get into more of the philosophy behind this group or the message, because Kevin does attempt to explain it in the next episode, and we get a little bit of it. But so far, it's like they want to remind people. It's like, you're literally at a parade dedicated to the thing you want to remind them of. And who the fuck is forgetting this happened? Maybe I'm missing something.
No, you're not missing anything at all. Like, the Guilty Remnant are supposed to be this kind of visceral feeling of you don't like them. And the show continues to go to that well. Like, not to spoil anything, but the Guilty Remnant are one of the more controversial elements of Season 1 because they are so you want to see them get a comeuppance, and whether or not they get a comeuppance, I won't say. But like,
well, I feel on some level they're trying to turn the mirror on society almost with this, where it's like they're not actually doing anything, but my desire to hurt them reveals me as a bad person. So maybe that's what it's all about. They're just trolls, I guess.
Yeah.
But
I mean, and like the show's obviously going to spend time with them. Like 3 of the regular characters in the show are involved in the Guilty Remnant. Yeah. So like there is a lot of time that will be spent with them over the course of the season.
It just struck me as someone who watches a lot of narrative. I feel I needed a better explanation about their motives, because they seem counterproductive in this scene, at least, where it's like, this is the last place anyone's forgetting. They're commemorating it, so why do you want them to not forget? That's unless they're talking about something different than I don't know. But later that night, Kevin, who is drunk and bumps into the mum whose baby disappeared in the first scene, nice callback, he drunkenly goes over to the GR's little like commune and demands to see his wife, who is Amy Brenneman, Laurie. So there's just shock, horror, twist. Because earlier on, we see him punch a picture of the family together. And I think you're supposed to just read it as like, oh, so the mother went, and that's what has fucked up this family. And that's why he's so despondent. It's like, no, she's alive, and she's willingly gone and joined the GR. And that makes way more sense why he'd punch the picture, because he's angry. It's not like, if he'd actually lost her, it's like, well, maybe he shouldn't punch the picture. Yeah, she rejects the request to sort of talk to him, and he is violently made to leave. Shows that they're only non-violent when they're doing a protest, and if you come into their house, they will punch you. So,
oh yeah.
I feel that was a good reveal. At times I was getting frustrated while watching this, and then I was like, okay, fair enough, you nailed it with that one. Maybe all the promotional material gave away outright that she is his wife. I don't think
they did.
Okay. To me, it came across as a twist, and I was like, oh, nice, okay. Now I want to know, why would one go off and join the GR when they haven't lost anyone or anything like that? So I assume we will get a juicy, like, why she joined them at some point. As he leaves, Liv Tyler arrives. And I didn't mention before, but basically her and her fiancé, husband, boyfriend, I think fiancé, they're just going about their business, and members of the GR are just standing watching them and chain smoking. And we see a little bit of this. And the reason I said I want someone to hurt them is because, Liv Tyler goes up to them and screams and slaps one of them. And I was like, yeah, go further. And I was like, oh God, that was a horrible thing to say. And then the parade happens and they are just violently assaulting them. And I was like, this is what they wanted from me, isn't it? So, yeah, she goes from being angry at them to showing up in a taxi, and she joins them. And this, ostensibly the leader, or maybe it's the leader of this sect, I don't know, we have no idea about their size at this point. She speaks and welcomes her. And she's like, this is the last time we will speak. I know it's an intentional vow of silence, but it just seemed strange to... I mean, I guess that's what they were trying to demonstrate. They're like, oh, they can talk, they're choosing not to. Or, I mean, I don't feel that needed explaining. That it was voluntary. Yeah. But it just struck me as a bit weird that it would be broken for something as incidental as this.
Yeah, like the one who speaks is Patty, played by Ann Dowd.
Who looks like she should be on Orange is the New Black.
Who is currently on The Handmaid's Tale.
Ah, there you go then.
Yeah, and Ann Dowd is... Oh God, she's so good. Like, obviously she doesn't get a lot to do in these first 2 episodes.
Click and tap a notepad and kick people.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so like they do get more into... She is one of the only Guilty Remnant in the season that we get to hear speak. Yeah, she's fantastic. We are definitely going to spend time talking about her. Liv Tyler is... Liv Tyler's an interesting one because... ostensibly, she's probably the biggest star.
Yeah.
After Justin Theroux, maybe.
No, I'd say Liv Tyler's the biggest star than Justin Theroux. I think a lot of people know his name, but can't necessarily summon up that big project he's in.
He married Jennifer Aniston.
Or did he? We'll never know.
Liv Tyler's an interesting one. So in researching this, I found out that apparently she gave up figuring out the motivation for her character at some point in the course of the show and just started delivering the lines they're written on the page, which... I think it's kind of one. I guess
her vow of silence isn't going to go well then. I was going to say, like, are you going to sign up Liv Tyler, who, you can say star or not, and just have her not speak for 3 seasons. And it's like, everyone's got what they want. They get to look at her, but not have to hear her act. But
I mean, like, that is Amy Brenneman. I don't think she says maybe 2 words in the entire season, and she isn't a small actress. Yeah, and
I mean, I've seen The Shape of Water. I know how powerful a performance can be without any dialogue. In fact, saw The Shape of Water with no subtitle. So I was doubly impressed with her acting, because I was like, I feel I understood everything she was saying with it, and she was just doing sign language. And then you revealed to me, no, every word of it is signed. And I was like, oh, okay. This is why Matt doesn't pirate things, but peer pressure meant that had to happen. Shh, don't tell the police. So our first episode closes with Kevin helps this stranger. He runs into this stranger again, and he helps him shoot a pack of dogs after they have brought down a deer, which Kevin believes is the same deer that was in his kitchen. Or he's like, were you in my kitchen? It was a really funny line in a very serious show that, is bookended with horrific violence, both dog on deer and then 2 men on dog. A shocking thing to see. It was an easy way to get on his side at the beginning of, he's trying to be nice to a dog and someone shoots it and he's like, hey! And it's like, okay, you're a good person. And then we close with our protagonist of the show just murdering a whole bunch of dogs.
Yeah, he
you're
unloads.
A bad person.
He unloads a whole clip into this pack of dogs.
Yeah.
Like, the episode ends just getting in closer and closer as he's just firing shot after shot at this pack of dogs, and just the sound effects. And, like, this is HBO.
Yeah, I guess. I gotta say, there are things in this first episode that hook me. Good little intriguing, I want to know more moment. But I don't think it's a phenomenally good episode of television, or a first episode of television. I think it's a well-regarded episode of the series, but just there were parts of it that just really frustrated me. And I'm pushing on, obviously, for both this podcast, and I do want to know some of what happens, but I wasn't having a perfectly wonderful time with it, I must say.
No, I've not watched this episode in a good 3-4 years at this point. It is super messy. Like, this is not the Lost pilot. This is like, the Lost pilot is
tight as fuck.
Yeah, like, that's one of the 10 to 5 greatest pilots of all time for television.
That might be the best first episode of anything I've ever seen. It would be Lost, but yeah. This is not that. This is a show which, and we will see over the course of the season, that they are still figuring out a lot of things. Yeah. As I've said, like, I don't think the music is quite all there. I don't think editing choices are quite all there that they'll be later on in the show. I think they have the kind of visual palette down. I think they have the characters down. But there's just something there. Are you trying to blame Peter Berg for the quality of this show so far?
Like, so Damon Lindelof said in an interview after the series concluded that the first season is not the easiest season to watch. And I think he said there are 5 bad episodes in season 1. Like, at least is the creator of the show saying there are 5 bad episodes and 5 great episodes that, like, hint towards, like, where they're going to go. And I can't disagree there, where these first 2 episodes are not a patch on what the show eventually achieves.
That's good to know, because
like this is season 1 is hit and miss. They shut production down in the middle of episode 6. Episode 4 has 2 directors on it because they kind of retool an entire subplot. So, like, this is a show that in its first season had teething problems, and you can see the seeds of, like, a great show in here.
This is interesting because Captain Controversy Mike Thomas said he only likes the first season of this show. So that seems to be the opposite of what I'm hearing from you here.
Yes, I mean, I think season 1. So in 2014, I did my top 10 list of shows. Fargo was my number 1, the first season of Fargo, and Leftovers was number 2.
Okay.
And that is in spite of a kind of rough start.
Yeah. Well, I feel this is a crash course in here are some characters, this is the situation, we've got to explain a lot of things. Well, get a lot of stuff on the board for you.
So I'm intrigued. So we've now, like, you've obviously Googled some of this, but, like, who do you think the regular characters are from watching this first episode?
The family. Kevin, Tom.
Is that it? Is that where you stop?
Well, I know from you, like, to break the magic of this show, that Carrie Coon and Christopher Eccleston are also major characters.
Yes, so I will now run you through a list of regulars in season 1 that were introduced in this first episode. Obviously, Justin Theroux as Kevin, Amy Brenneman as Laurie, Jill Modquayle, Tom Chris Ilka as the core 4. As you've said, Carrie Coon as Nora, Matt with Christopher Eccleston. Liv Tyler as Meg is a regular, obviously.
Sure. Oh, I would have assumed that because she's a star. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anne Dowd, Patty, is also a regular on the show.
Yeah.
Right, and now let's get into the ones that will leave you with the head scratchers.
Annie Q.
Emily Mead is Amy. Jill's best friend is a regular on the show.
That makes sense.
So then we move on to Annie Q as Christine.
Wayne's favourite.
The
most Asian of them all.
Michael Gaston as Dean.
Oh, the stranger?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Is a regular. And finally, Max Carver and Charlie Carver as those two twins who want the girls to come play ping pong with them.
The fuckboys, okay, yeah. And Stick is coming, I know that.
Stick is coming. Oh, and Amanda Warren as Lucy Warburton the Mayor is also a regular.
Right, okay.
You do not have to worry about half of those.
I've seen them all, I think, so there you go.
This is very much like the opposite of the Lost pilot, where at the end of the Lost pilot, like, you feel like you know everyone, or you feel you've had time with everyone.
Yeah, I recently re-listened to the first episode of From Broadcast Depth, covering the pilot, and they very accurately pointed out that the getting to know the character, like quick 20-second or 2-minute scenes you get with everyone are very effective in establishing who everyone is, because like Sawyer has like one line, doesn't he? Or like,
yeah, he doesn't have a line in the first. In the first episode, he doesn't have a line.
But you see him, and you're like, look at this cool guy. He's trouble. Yeah.
So before we finish up on the first episode of The Leftovers, special shout out to Michael Slovis, who did the cinematography, probably best known for his work on Breaking Bad, where he was the cinematographer of that show for the vast majority of his run. He transitioned to a director kind of later on, but yeah, like he set the visual palette for Breaking Bad, and he does the same here. Having him set the tone for this first episode does a lot of wonders, like as the show goes on, because there is a rich visual palette for them to kind of start pulling from. And as I've said, like the show is almost there in some of its kind of less conventional TV editing music choices.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, this doesn't, from the first episode, it doesn't strike me as something that's like technically creative, and the way you've talked about it makes it seem like it will definitely get there and do some very interesting visual and musical stuff.
Yeah, I will say it's never going to get, like, we're not going to sit here dissecting a 10-minute one like in True Detective Season 1. Like, we're not going to get to that level.
It's not going to be the hallway fight from Daredevil.
No, but I do, like, in terms of, like, what the visuals achieve, this show is a beautiful show. And Peter Berg is not a bad choice to direct the first 2 episodes, but he kind of...
He knows his lane. He knows his lane.
Yeah, but like it's just the show is still figuring itself out, and I think it's when like Mimi Leader comes on as the director that the show really starts to like fire on all cylinders.
Gotta say, Justin Theroux, his portrayal of Kevin, 2 episodes in, there's a little bit of Kyle Chandler about him. So I mean, take what you will. Okay,
is this you wanting that Kyle Chandler to have like a terrible back tattoo?
And I want to do a smash cut to him banging someone when he's asked, so where were you on the day it happened? Oh, you know. Like, that's good. It's like, someone would be doing something like that. Like, not everyone can have a big dramatic story about it. Anyway, let's move on to episode 2, Penguin 1, Us 0. A title that, it doesn't confuse me, but it's like, okay, this is where we're going. All right, then. Aired 6th of July, 2014. Again, directed by Peter Berg, written by Damon Lindelof and Kath Lingenfelter.
Yes.
Let's go with that. So we get our opening titles, which are bad. Like, suspiciously bad for an HBO show that's kind of a big deal. I didn't want to offend you, so I originally was going to be like, maybe they'll grow on me, but then I think you also think they're not good. So
yeah, no, they are the epitome of the kind of bombast and bad ways in which this show uses music in season 1. Like, there are some, as I've said, there are some moments which are really good and beautiful, and then there are other moments where it's just like the title sequence of this episode kicks off and is like, and then
look, it's the Sistine ceiling, but it's more like debauchery, and then massive white flash, and then The Leftovers. It's like,
yeah, it's not.
This doesn't strike me as a high concept show, but
no, it's not. It's not good. We will revisit this at some point later, but for now we have to deal with this at the start of every episode. And I love Max Richter. This was not a good theme song for the show.
Glad we can confirm that from the mega fan. Okay, so we open with a SWAT raid on Holy Wayne's Ranch.
From at Feck, which are which used to be the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms, but is now the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, Explosive and Cults.
Okay. Seems a weird one to tack on the end.
Well, no,
I guess, do you want one more? We got cults available. Yeah, sure, we'll take it. Like, we're not doing anything. Yeah, we learn definitively from this scene that Wayne likes ladies of an Asian persuasion and underage ladies as well. Piece of work is Wayne. They raid his ranch and shoot many of his employees, including a woman. It's like, oh, shit. Tom gets Christine. Against all odds, he manages to get her out. And they later rendezvous with Wayne, who also escaped. Him getting out the back of a car driven by a much older woman was a moment for me.
There are two moments like so in the course of the escape, Tom shoots an ATFEC agent in the neck.
He kills someone.
Yeah, he kills someone, and then he says sorry to the body.
He does do that because Tom's a nice young boy.
Yeah, and then Holy Wayne getting out the back of the car, just topless, and
just cause. He licks a dead man's face, and then he's like, "He wouldn't have let me do that when he was alive." It's like, there are many things he wouldn't let you do. It doesn't mean you should do them, you freak.
Holy Wayne is weird. He then demands Tom to give him a hug.
Yeah, right. So, is Wayne a sin eater? Like, this is a thing in, I believe, Native American culture where, like, a member of the tribe would absorb the sins of the rest of the tribe for reasons. I get that kind of a vibe from it, where like he takes people's guilt off and he claims that it'll get them raptured the next time. Is how I've read this.
Definitely couldn't disagree with your interpretation right now.
Okay, yeah, I mean that's how it's being presented. Like a man is paying to come and see him. And he's about to, like, do his thing, and he's like, let me take it from... He says something to that effect to Tom, and Tom's like, nah, I'm good. But he takes his shirt from him. I mean, the man can't walk around topless and be a paedophile.
No.
That's just a bad combination.
And have a shitload of money in the back of his car.
Yes. Yeah, so Tom, as we saw before, like, he's clearly not 100% all in on this line of work he's found himself in, which begs even more questions. It doesn't beg questions. It implores one to ask how he ended up here, why he is still there, all of this. I am genuinely intrigued. He is still entrusted with Christine. Wayne rolls off again, and then Tom is left with Christine. He screams at the top of his lungs, and Christine just looks at him bemused and is just like, I can't remember what she says, but she's just like not bothered by this man yelling at the top of his voice.
Yeah, like you get the implication that he's more in it because he likes Christine.
Don't join a cult because you like one of the people that is like ostensibly a concubine for this crazy hugger man.
Well, he joins the cult because, as they show in the flashback in episode 1, like he witnesses two people jump off the top of a bell tower and commit suicide at his college.
Yeah. Okay, fair. He's made his choices. He is with the face licker Wayne and Christine. So Jill and her fun friends decide to follow around Nora. That's Carrie Coon.
Wait, we forgot about them burying the dog.
Yeah, they do bury the dog. Yes, but Jill has her dad's car at the party in the previous episode, and they open the trunk, and there's a dead dog, and they bury it.
I just like their reactions. Their reactions are very like, what the fuck? Why does your dad have a dead dog in his trunk?
Why is there a dog in the trunk of the car, Dad? You know. I was saving it. Anyway, as we said, Nora, against all odds, lost her entire family. They see she has a big fat gun in her purse. And
important.
Yes, they're kind of talking shit about her from a few tables away. And she deliberately pushes a coffee mug off her table and it smashes. And, like, the cafe owner or whatever is sort of like, what the fuck? And then when he sees it's her, he's like, oh, don't worry about it. I read this as she can hear them or has noticed that they're talking about her and she's, like, showing off. Or maybe she doesn't know that they are paying attention to her, but I kind of get the feeling that she fucks with people because she knows she can get away with it because she's like...
Yes. Yeah, that is why she's doing it. I don't think she necessarily realises because she doesn't pay attention to them when they follow her, but she feels like she can fuck with people because of what happened to her. Like, she is known in this town as the sad lady who lost her entire family.
Yeah. So they decide to follow her, and it appears she works for some kind of insurance company or something.
I want to point out one important thing. She does hug Matt the preacher as she's leaving.
Yes, sorry, she does do that. She hugs Matt the preacher,
implying some kind of relationship connection between the two of them.
Foreshadowing.
Maybe
are they running a Ponzi scheme? Is this all a massive? Anyway, she appears to work with some kind of insurance company or something, because she visits this elderly couple, offering to give them a check because their son departed, and she has to ask them all these questions. It's all very uncomfortable, and she hears these sexy nihilistic teens outside making a ruckus, and she comes to the door, and this very deliberate eye contact is made as they try and drive off and everything. It's just, there's something very suspicious about this entire exchange, and maybe it's because I don't trust her generally, but some part of me is like, this isn't real. She doesn't work for anyone that does this. I don't know. It's interesting though that we get to...
I think this scene is so, because obviously it's implied that these are questions that they have to ask everyone, that there's no change to the set out and stuff like that, so they're all kind of questions like the family that she's interviewing is just like, our son had Down syndrome, and then the next question is, are you aware whether or not your child had more than the departed had more than 15 sexual partners, whatever. and they're just such devastating and invasive questions that you can't imagine having any use in deciding whether or not this person would have departed.
Okay, based on you being all coy about them having a relationship, is she basically doing the research for him about whether these people are good or not?
Oh, man.
Anyway, So, Meg, Liv Tyler's initiation into the GR, it's a little bit turbulent. She's frustrated by their methods, and she gets asked to cut down a tree. She does possibly the worst job of cutting down a tree I've ever seen a human. I feel everyone knows that's not how you swing an axe. I feel that's just something you just know, but...
Also, she keeps on hitting different points.
And really high up the tree. What are you doing, Liv Tyler?
Also, it's funny how much... this is implied to be about 2-3 weeks after the first episode.
Yeah.
It's so snowy.
It is very snowy.
It's so snowy.
Yeah.
I feel like New York doesn't get that snowy by early November.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, I don't think it does, but who are we to say? If Mike Thomas actually listens to this one, he won't. He could tell us because he lives in New York. So she also has to give away her departed mother's possessions every day.
Oh, okay.
That's fucked up. So Kevin shows up to interview her because her fiancé declared her missing, and he's like, do you need my help here? And he clearly hates the GR, and she doesn't go with him. It seems like she's gonna leave, but she ultimately doubles her resolve, and she goes out by herself and continues cutting down this tree by herself. So the GR's message still just confuses me, because Kevin says their mission is to remind people what happened, or make sure, they're talking about making sure people don't forget, and I don't know, it all just seems a little bit like, what's happening? And I continue to hate them, and at the same time want to know what their actual deal is, because as presented, I'm like, nah, I'm not buying this, but we'll see. I mean, spending more time with them will certainly help, but for now, she still gets to talk. She's in it kind of seems like it's like a house for the new recruits, because there's another guy there that talks, and then there's someone who doesn't. It's all a little bit sinister, but annoying as well.
I love that, when they get back, Kevin's got the little pin board with all the faces on it and stuff like that, and the mayor walks in and is just immediately like, oh god, I wish I'd never told you to watch The Wire.
Yeah.
They're making this into this really involved investigation, and it's just technically the GR aren't doing anything illegal.
Yeah, well that's what I was saying before, that that's why I wonder if that's the whole point, is that they're revealing the dark side of other people while doing nothing wrong, they're inciting incredible hatred. And it's well, I guess I'm a bad person then, because I want to punch every one of them in the mouth. We get the nice little bonding moment about Kevin being hot, I guess. Meg's fiance, basically, when he hears she's there, he's like, oh, well, fuck her then. I was like, okay, cool.
You get some implication that, because the implication is that they've been engaged for about 3 years, and that the wedding was postponed because of the departure.
Right.
And so he obviously has some kind of resentment towards her for putting his life on hold for 3. Yeah, like losing her mother, the departure, these things obviously like weighed on him and have obviously weighed on her and their relationship. And so the fact that she will, after like one day of being stalked by them, just up and leave their life together to go live in this thing, like he just
it was very jarring in the pilot for sure that she does that complete 180 of. Is that how they recruit people? Do they stalk them into coming to?
I mean, that is the implication, because they do the whole, like, you're going to lose her. Like, they want to recruit people, and they target people who are weak or have some kind of, like, just people who are broken.
They prey on the vulnerable. So,
yeah.
Bad people.
Bad people.
Speaking of bad people, dog murderer Kevin is forced to go to police-mandated therapy. Where we
shooting a load of dogs.
Yep. It's such a casual thing. This is where we see the penguin of the title, I guess. It's for children to punch, I guess. I don't know.
The title's very confusing on this one.
It is. I was like, what's going to happen here? Are there going to be actual penguins in the leftovers? Like, I had no visual imprint of what the leftovers looked like until I saw it, and I knew that there was an episode with penguin in the title. I was like, are there penguins? Like, what happens on the leftovers? Anyway, yeah, so Kevin is pretty, like, tetchy about having to be in therapy. He doesn't see it as a big deal. He quotes the stranger when he is pressed by the mayor. Like,
they're not our dogs anymore.
They're not our dogs anymore, exactly, yeah. So he's getting through to you. And a big thing they play with here is the idea that Kevin is going a bit crazy and that this stranger might not even be a real person, because they say how they found Kevin at the scene alone, and this truck that they're looking for turns out to be on his driveway. And, you know, he's like, oh, well, no one saw him. It's like, well, I saw him. And, like, you know, oh, do you want to say we found the truck a few blocks over? It's like, why the fuck would we do that? So it's all being framed in a way that's like, the stranger isn't real, Kevin's losing his mind. But we do...
I love the way that Kevin's response to this is just kind of like people like tiptoe around him, and as we'll find out, there is plenty of reason for them to tiptoe around him. But his response anytime it happens is just like, are you fucking nuts? Say yes, chief. Yes, chief.
We get confirmation the stranger is real, though, because he shows up at Kevin's door and basically gives him beer, which Jill takes off his hand. So, you know, that's real. That can't be real. They ask who that guy was. Stranger is real. He basically recruits Kevin into helping him go shoot more dogs the next day. And it's all very, like, how has he talked you into this? Like, they're dogs, man. I couldn't really find a place to put this down, but we get another dream from Kevin that kind of... His dream starts with his daughter's friend Amy coming to him in bed in her underwear, and it's like, so you're already a dog murderer as the sort of protagonist of this show, and to make me like you more, you're having maybe sex dreams about this underage girl. Like,
I think she is implied to be 18.
I don't give a shit. It's weird. I thought it was real for a minute. And to be honest, in the first episode, when, you know, they're having that dinner together, you kind of get a vibe that she's, like, maybe wants to flirt with him a little bit. So I thought that was just actually happening. It's like, oh no, It's a dream with fire, and then he wakes up and his neighbour has set fire to the fence.
That is definitely more of a thing in the books, is the relationship between those two.
Just rampant pedophilia at the end of the world, apparently.
Yeah, I think the show definitely curtails the high-spirited flirting between the single father and...
Like, I'm okay with teenage girls crushing on hunky dads. I'm not okay with hunky dads having sex dreams about teenage girls. So yeah, we continue this theme of, are his dreams predicting the future, or is the present seeping into his dreams because he imagines being on fire and there's a fence on fire. It's all a bit. So he reluctantly goes to visit his father of the same name, Kevin Sr., the former chief who will go and help fight the Hand in Hell's Kitchen later. It's Scott Glenn playing his father, who is in a
mental health institution. There
you go, then. And I mean, the vibe you get from the first 2 episodes was everyone really liked his dad, and they're not wild about Kevin. But also, it's very clear Kevin Sr. went through some stuff.
He had a
ran around naked.
Reality.
He deduces that people are basically accusing Kevin of acting strangely. He maintains he still has his shit together, despite what anyone says. Immediately is contradicted by talking to people who aren't in the room. But then we bring it back around because he kind of knows things he can't possibly know because he asks Kevin about the stranger, right? Like,
yes, he does, yeah.
So something going on there. I mean, the immediate guess would be he feels he can talk to the people that departed or something like that. I don't know, but...
So I will say there are two very important things about this scene that I need to point out. One is, of course,
TV show?
Yes, it is one of them. Kevin's dad talking to people who aren't there is something that to keep an eye on over the course of the show.
Sure.
And then the TV show, as our American listeners, will probably know, is Perfect Strangers, the popular ABC sitcom that ran from 1986 to 1993, with all those popular characters of Larry and Balky and whatnot.
And they say the whole cast vanished.
There, so that is a thing which becomes something. It plays in the background. Basically, the entire cast of Perfect Strangers vanished on the departure, and like how insane it is that happened.
Much like Carrie Coon losing her whole family.
Pay attention to that.
Are we going to get a Noah Hawley TV show happening in the background, like that contains themes relevant to what's happening in the foreground type deal?
I will say nothing.
Interesting. Much like the video game The Darkness. Anyway, so that's kind of your first two episodes, I guess. I mean, things to note: Christopher Eccleston still has not even a role really. Like he's there. Carrie Coon, at least we get to establish that she's important and that she is going to do stuff. I'll say the hooks continue to intrigue me of like what is the deal with this stranger and the dreams and the dogs and his father and stuff like that. I'm still frustrated by other things here. Yeah.
So so the one thing I want to ask about is, what did you think about the bagel?
His bagels get stuck in a little toaster oven and then he gets them out. I don't know. It seemed very to branch off from Carrie Coon. It seemed very Gloria in season 3 of Fargo, where all the technology just doesn't work for her for some reason. It just seemed as something just quirky that you could view as like he's cursed, but it's actually just dumb shit is happening. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like that. Like it's supposed to kind of ramp up the is he mentally well? Like
we're going for is he delusional here? Like is he seeing things? Is he? We're going for the it happened to his dad. I guess it might happen to him, so I guess everyone walks on eggshells around him.
Yeah, so we've kind of got most of the setup. This is Peter Berg's last episode directing the show. He will not be returning, sadly.
Off to work on a gritty reboot of Friday Night Lights.
No, actually, I think he went off to shoot the pilot for Ballers.
Oh, okay. So he's just going the James Burrows route and just getting all that pilot money.
Now we've reached 2 episodes. I've already said kind of like my feelings about these first 2 episodes. Like, where are you sat? Like, if you Matt Waters sat down to watch these first 2 episodes and you weren't recording a podcast, would you carry on?
I'm not entirely sure if I would. The difference comes in I tend to buy a lot of television, like whether it be on DVD or digital. So it's kind of like, even if I don't like it, I've got it all, so I might as well watch it. So in this situation where I have it, I bought all 3 seasons for this, I would continue to watch it. But if it was something that's on TV every week, they might be losing my interest and reducing my desire to tune in next week. Yeah, there are certain things that frustrate me. There are certain things that I don't think are quite where they're going to be. But then there are also things that do hook me, and I do want to know what the deal is with some of this stuff.
So what are they? What are the things that are hooking you so far?
Well, like I said, like what's the deal with? I mean, you've kind of explained the dogs to me, but like the stuff with the dogs, and I do want to know more about the GR. His dad, that seems like something that will get very important. Like the way you talk about Scott Glenn, based on this, it makes it seem like he's going to be a huge character, because like he annoys me as Stick in the Marvel Netflix stuff. I don't know what it is, something about his voice, but he seems like he's going to be a good actor here. But yeah, I mean, the more supernatural elements are the things that hook me. I feel it's going to be like Twin Peaks, where like the things I'm interested in, they're going to turn around and be like, that's not what the show was about. And I'm going to be like, oh. But then I guess if they've hooked me, then by that point I'll be invested in the characters. But yeah, I could totally see people being frustrated about wanting to just know definitively what happened that day. And if they never get there, I don't want to know if they do or not, but I could see how that might be a turn-off for some people, because at the moment, those are the kinds of things that are interesting me, and I wonder if I'm ever actually going to get any of them, or if it's just going to be a big character piece, which I'm fine with. But that's what's interesting me more at the moment.
Yeah, you kind of want the characters to be more sketched out than they are right now.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So luckily, next episode is going to do something similar to that.
Okay, good.
As we finally get to find out why Christopher Eccleston is a regular on this TV show.
Okay, I could also do with some flashbacks at some point. Like, what were you doing on the day that everything disappeared, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't need to know everything, but something would be good.
All I'm going to say is the next episode is the one that made me a believer in this show.
I will say I think I enjoyed the second episode more than the first. It seemed slightly more confident, but I would like even more confidence than this, of like, tell me what you are as a show, and if that's where we're going, then good. Well then, unless you have anything else on these first 2 episodes.
No, I'm just really excited for us to watch episode 3.
Yeah.
Which my partner watched the show last year, like because of my raving about it.
No one is safe.
And basically, her response to watching this 3rd episode was like, "Well, that was intense."
Okay, good. I want some intense. Lucky her, she gets to live with you soon, so like she's going to live these things in real time and not.
Oh, I'm already in my head thinking she's not watched Lost, so that is almost definitely a thing.
From listening to a lot more of From Broadcast Depth, I was like, I'm only allowed to watch 2 of these at a time for this podcast. I need a new show. I might rewatch all of Lost again. So we'll see what happens there. But for now, this has been the first episode of Countdown to Destruction. EnterTheRealWorld.com, SoundCloud.com/Mike and Matt. That gets more unfortunate over time as Ben is threatening to pump out as much content on this website. And Kevin, and other Ben, as Mike Thomas does. But hey, check out From Broadcast Depth. By the time you hear this, Mike and I should have reviewed Season 2 of Legion. And we keep threatening to do a certain series of movies. I think that's where we're going to be at, like doing like a trilogy of movies, as like we did with Blade, but giving a fuck. So look out for all of that good stuff. And if you wanna just get into spoiler territory and not wait about any of this, I'm sure you can tweet Ben at Enquoid.
Like if you want to talk to me about The Leftovers, I am always open to talk about The Leftovers. Okay. We can talk about French people on submarines all day long.
Wow, okay. And please, nobody spoil this show for me. Don't just tweet at The Real World and just say, oh, and this happens, and this happens, and this happens. Because we're in it. So next time, episodes 3 and 4 of The Leftovers 4, Countdown to Destruction.